Looking back at St. Louis's 250th birthday celebration and its cake way to the west. That story next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. Well, now that we've wrapped up a year-long celebration of St. Louis's 250th birthday that was held all through 2014, it's time to look back on what happened during the year, and in particular, we're going to find out about those 4-foot-tall metal birthday cakes that you've seen scattered across the region. I'd like to first introduce Erin Budde. She's the Volunteer Executive Director for STL250. Hi, Erin. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
And she brought along artist Rich Brooks. Hi, Rich. Welcome.
Good morning.
Erin, what a year you had.
It has been a fantastic 12 months of celebration of our 250th birthday.
Now, we're focusing on the cakes today, but there was can you give us a real short synopsis of what you did last year?
Sure. The volunteer-led organization, STL250, came together really about 3 years before the birthday year to start thinking about how we wanted to hold a regional celebration of St. Louis's founding and the center of the region's founding. The group did lots of wonderful activities, several signature events that were around the birthday weekend, which was Valentine's Day weekend last year, the Burn and Love Festival, a really wonderful reenactment, a birthday ball. But perhaps one of the neatest things that we did was reached out to about 3,000 organizations across the region, letting them know it was the region's birthday and asking them how they wanted to celebrate. And together those organizations got together and fielded hundreds of other events, really all around celebrating the 250th.
Yeah. Rich, you're an artist, and we're going to get into this birthday cake thing a little more, but you actually created a number of these cakes. How did you get involved in this whole project?
Regional Arts Council called me and said, can you help us paint some prototypes? And I was excited. It was in the middle of the winter. We had a couple of little meetings. We kept waiting for the cakes, and finally they came on a very snowy, icy day. So we actually had to, once we got them, we had to let them warm up for 24 hours. Because
they're metal, right?
No, they're actually fiberglass.
Oh, they're fiberglass. They look like metal. They look heavy. Are they?
Actually, they're fairly light. So
they're about 4 feet tall, are they not?
Yep, about a little bit over 4 feet tall, made of fiberglass, weigh about 50 pounds if
so
they're
were
by
like
themselves.
Actually, I think there were more than 250 altogether.
There were 256 that we ordered just so we had a few to grow on.
Right. So these have been scattered around the metro area for the last year, and they're starting to disappear, aren't they?
They are. So scattered is an interesting word. We like to think that they were deliberately placed.
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, no, but there was a wide distribution. But they were placed in areas that marked our innovation, our landmark sites, our heritage and culture, our St. Louis favorite areas. And so it really was a great way to tour around the region.
We have 5 images. Let's look at those here in the beginning, Rich. And since you did a bunch of these, and these all pertain to you, I think.
I love things that pertain to me.
Well, then you're going to like this. Tell me, there you are right there. I'm
in the cake factory. It's about 32 degrees right there. And I'm just working, helping facilitate some of the other artists. There were about 40, 50 artists that worked at the cake factory.
Why don't we just run through these next 4 images then? And they're all different. They're sort of personalized. Would that be the right way to do it, Erin? They all tell a story.
They do. And so sometimes the story was specific to the location, like this one, which was at Columbia Bottom, and really told the story of that great conservation area. Others were more just themed around things about St. Louis that people felt were important.
Keep going here?
Yeah.
This was wonderful.
Yeah.
To me, when these all came in, we only had 6 to work on, Andy Cross and myself, to do the prototypes, but when these started coming in, it was like a celebration. I mean, it was, we knew every one of them would be painted, but I thought, let's take a picture of the naked cakes.
So they all started out looking absolutely alike. And as you look at the 256 that were painted and placed throughout the region, you just really saw the region come alive through the artist's creative work.
How many artists were involved altogether?
We had over 150 that we worked with directly, and then some of the sites decided to decorate their own cakes as well.
And so, Rich, since you did a number of them, how did you make each one different? I mean, what was your thought process, or how did you approach? I know you tailored them to sort of reflect the location where they were placed. So just explain how that works.
A lot of them were location. A lot of them were about who the sponsor was. For example, the one at the Art Museum was sponsored by Southwest, so they're on the cake, but they weren't the big feature of the cake. You know, I actually took the newest show that the Art Museum had, the Impressionist show, and one of the pieces from the Impressionist show was right on that cake, and then things around the Art Museum. So I tried to make it like it was a storytelling. You know, so you wanted to walk around the whole cake.
You know, I didn't make an effort to go around and like find each one, but I certainly saw a lot of them, and I would watch. And at every location I was, really, I would see people come by on a mission. I could tell they were searching for cakes. They'd get out, take pictures, talk to people. You got a great response in that regard, didn't you?
We really did. So tens of thousands of people, families, individuals, visitors, really went on what ended up being called a cake hunt.
Let's look at a couple. This first one, Aries, would that be the winery up in Grafton?
Right.
I think this would be the cake from Aries Winery. Why don't we take a look at that?
Not only was that a trip up there, it was a trip up the hill and down the hill.
Oh, I've been there.
But, you know, this is one of the favorite locations just because of the view is spectacular.
And we worked with the Grafton Chamber of Commerce to decide where that one would be placed. And they really wanted to show off those beautiful views in Grafton.
And so this is a good example from Grafton, I think as far west as, I think in Washington County, maybe?
Yep, so our furthest west cake was at Merrimack Caverns in Franklin County, and our furthest east cake was in probably Carlisle.
Wow.
And so what we tried to do was for each county in the 15-county metropolitan bi-state region, they had at least one cake so that we could really stress St. Louis is a region, and we succeed as a region, and the region grew up around the city of St. Louis.
The next one we want to take a look at is the cake, STL250 Cake at City Garden.
I love this cake.
Which is downtown, and I love City Garden.
Yeah, I did too, and I love Pinocchio.
Did you make this one, Rich?
I did. And it was a fun one to make because I was gearing it towards kids, but for adults. And you know, the one thing I guess people have forgotten about the cakes is how it created an atmosphere at the cake. People spent money to go to the location. A lot of times when they went to the location, they would eat, they would go to a show, they would have a good time. But I mean, if you think about tens of thousands of people, it generated an economic boom for the city.
Erin, did you get that feedback from business owners?
We did. We heard about that over and over again. Everybody from Blue Owl down in Kimmswick, you know, who said we've had so many people that have never been down here before that stopped in and had lunch with us, to Squires and Lafayette Square, to small businesses around downtown.
Rich, you didn't spend any money at the winery, did you?
Not
That's a joke. I'm just kidding.
Not much.
Let's look at the next one. This is the cake at Kuhn Plaza. Tell us what you know about that one.
This is one of my favorite cakes. It was one of the prototypes. I call it my Van Gogh cake. And
your what cake?
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh.
Because it was in Van Gogh style. Simple.
Oh, I see.
Again, kind of fun. I figured it was going to be somewhere close to the arch, so I tried to show the riverfront on one side, the arch on the other side, and just make it fun so people wanted to come up and kind of embrace it. And this seems to be one of the favorite cakes.
And this cake was a neat one because we worked with Gateway Greening, which is the organization that does all those beautiful plantings in downtown St. Louis. And so they really designed the plantings in Kuhn Plaza and on some of the medians around that cake.
Rich, how long would a cake take you to make? Did that vary?
Anywhere from 40 hours to 55. I think the Art Museum was about 55 hours.
That sounds like a lot.
It is. And I'm doing 20 cakes. I invested about 1,000 hours.
Erin, did you give guidelines? Did the artists have like free control to do what they want? Did they have to get a design approved ahead of time? How did you handle that?
Yeah, so the Regional Arts Commission was a great partner with us in choosing the artists. They had a great process that they put in place for the People Project about 10 years ago, if you remember that one. And so we did. We put together guidelines. Probably the biggest guideline was needed to really be supportive of the values of STL250, which is celebratory for the region. We wanted to make sure that the content matter was appropriate.
Right.
And also, I think the other thing that was a big thing was we didn't want any projectiles coming off of the cake. Just minimize the souvenirs that people might try to take home with them.
So we had safe cakes.
Yeah, so all of the artists submitted a rendering. The rendering was reviewed by a team of folks, signed off on it before they actually, the cake was released into their custody to go ahead and paint it.
Let's look at another one. This one's from Soulard Restoration.
This one was perfectly planted because it was planted around to match the cake. They actually, you can see the few little plantings there. It actually created a little cradle for it. Huh. And because it was on Gravois and 12th Street, it was a perfect place, location. It was like a point. And so even people got married here.
No kidding.
Wedding
really?
pictures, all kinds of things, yes.
Wow. Now, have some of these cakes been sold?
Yes, so we had at the end of the year a Take the Cake auction. All of the host locations had the opportunity to keep the cake. It was our thank you for hosting it for 12 months and really having an opportunity to interact with all those folks. About 85 of the cakes were donated back to us for the auction.
Yeah, I know some are still out there. I was motorcycling up the River Road last weekend, and I saw the one at the Piasell Bird, the painting on the bluff there. It's still there, so there's still some out there. Yeah. In this second half of this segment, we're going to meet a couple of people. I think you call them cakers?
Or crazy cakers.
Crazy cakers? Those were Rich's words, not mine. So tell me about the people we're going to meet.
So it was amazing to see the community that came together around Cake Way to the West. There were several Facebook user groups that were put together, but one really emerged as the leading one, and it's the St. Louis 250 Cake Lovers group. They call themselves Cakers. They're thousands strong, and they created a community to help one another find the cakes, to talk about different pieces of the cakes that they loved most, about the artists, to engage them. And they engaged in activities themselves.
So we're going to meet two people that actually went on a mission to find all 250 cakes and photograph them.
Sometimes twice.
Yeah, sometimes twice. It's a little obsessive maybe, or no, I'm just kidding.
Oh, those were your words.
True cake lovers.
Rich, what was the most fun part of this for you?
I think there were two sides of it. One, the painting, because I really wanted to make each piece, its own, stand by itself. And secondly, meeting all the cakers, meeting the people that I was working with to do the cakes. And mostly, sometimes they treat you like you're a rock star, even if you're 65.
Good for you. Hey, we could all enjoy that. Rich, thanks for your talent. And we enjoyed the work that you did. And Erin, thank you for being here too. And we'll come back and we'll meet a couple of the cakers and hear their stories.
Great.
So we'll continue with City Corner right after this. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome back to City Corner. We're talking about STL250 and part of what they did all last year in celebrating and recognizing the city of St. Louis's 250th birthday. And specifically, what I'm talking about is the creation of a good 250 4-foot-tall fiberglass birthday cakes that were placed at strategic locations around the region as a way to celebrate our history. And we're going to meet two self-described cakers right now. To my immediate right is Chris Davidson. Chris.
Hi, Steve.
And also here is Danette Sumerford. Hi, Danette. How are you?
Hi, Steve. Cakers.
And Rich Brooks referred to you in the first segment as, I think, was it crazy cakers?
We'll agree to that. Definitely.
Yeah.
Because the reason I said he said that is because you are among a group of people that took it upon yourselves to go around and find each and every one of these 250 cakes at the various locations and take pictures of them.
Yes, we did. Yep.
So that might be a little crazy, Chris. How much time did that take you, and how did that idea first pop into your head that you were going to do that?
It was like an addiction, a hook. I saw the first one and took the second one and said, well, I can do them all. So I did.
Where are you from?
I'm from St. Louis, and I learned about places I had never been to. I went to many locations that I would have never dreamed of going to, many things that I will go back to several times again.
Interesting. What's your story, Danette?
I saw my first cake at the Missouri History Museum when I was visiting there with my son, and I got curious about what this cake thing was all about, and went home, went online, and thought, well, this would be a great way to get to learn about my new city, because we had just moved here. And sure enough, we went, and I just made it a mission. Once I saw 2 or 3, there was no stopping me.
Where'd you move from?
We moved here from Iowa.
How long have you been here?
2 years.
What do you think?
Oh, loved it. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Now, before we go any further, we want to take a look at some of these cakes and talk about them. But Chris, we called you a crazy caker. Maybe you really did deserve that, because isn't it true that you went more than once?
Yes, Steve, I've been to every single cake at least twice, and many of them multiple other times. It's hard to even count.
I wonder how much time you guys put in on that. You probably don't even know.
I don't think I want to know.
Yeah, some people actually track their miles and track their money, and we just, I think, decided better not to.
Let's just enjoy it and sit back for the ride.
Let's look at some of the photographs that you and other people have taken, and you can just tell me your memories of that location or what you think about that cake. The one we're going to look at right now is the STL250 birthday cake at the St. Louis Art Museum.
Great cake.
That's one that Rich did.
Yeah, Rich did, what did he say, 20 or something or more?
20,
yeah.
19, 20.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move to the next one, which is Route 66.
We do love that one, don't we?
Where exactly was that? Do you remember?
That was at Merritt's.
And talk a little bit about, how they were placed. If, I think Rich made that point. Some of them are very strategically placed. The location of them were sort of relevant.
Some of them were done for historic values. Some of them were tourist spots. I think Erin explained how they chose the locations of where they put the cakes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And are there any favorite ones that come to mind, just off the top of your head? And what made it a favorite cake for you?
Oh gosh, I actually ended up having multiple categories of favorites because it was hard to come up with just 1 or 2. But the one that you just showed is definitely one of my favorites. My son loved that one because he loved watching where the road went around it, and there's a car right there in the corner that he really liked. It's a great cake and great memory, and it just has a lot of fun things on it. Let's take a look at a couple more. This one, maybe I won't even tell you, I'll see if you can remember. Now there's 250 cakes, so I actually don't expect you to recall each one off the top. Oh, that it says it gives it away, doesn't it? Shaw Park.
Mm-hmm. Shaw Park and Clayton.
What do you remember about that one?
I don't have a lot of memories of Shaw Park because it is in Clayton and I'm from this county, but it's like all of Rich's cakes. It's a beautifully done cake. It brings in all the location area pieces. He's got the slide and the swimming pool from the background, and if you had zoomed in on the cake, there's just some really nice specific pieces of that bring out the city of Clayton and the history. And as far as my memory of that goes, we actually discovered a really wonderful playground that's in that park. That's an all-accessible playground, and it's become one of our favorites to go to.
This next one, I think, is at St. Louis University, which, as you know, I work at St. Louis Public Radio, and that's right in my working neighborhood there.
That's a nice cake.
That's a beautiful location.
Really nice location. That's the opposite direction from what you normally see that cake taken. Normally we would try and photograph the cake on the 250 side and show whatever was in the background. And that's one of my photographs the day I tried to take the picture with all the nice Christmas lights in the background. That was one of the retakes. We would go back for retakes with Christmas decorations. We'd go back in the snow. We'd go back at sunset and try and light the candles. We had many reasons to go back and photograph as well as taking details.
So did you drag people along with you? Was it the same person always? Or talk a little bit about that. I think, Danette, you mentioned taking one of your kids.
Oh, sure. I went with my 3-year-old. And he called it going on an adventure to find cakes. And he got to be my cake spotter. I would drive, and he would sit in the back seat, and all of a sudden I'd hear, "Cake!" And I knew, okay, we're close, there it is.
Even if it wasn't a cake.
Sometimes he was off, yeah.
I had the pleasure of going through the University City Loop with Danette and her son. And for a 3-year-old, that child is the most enjoyable, fun little caker that we ever had. And we went up and down the loop and saw every cake, when there's like 6 of them, I think, on the main loop. We went to the top of the Moonrise Hotel. We went into the Regional Arts Council and saw pieces of artwork throughout. And
so did you know each other before this? And didn't a lot of you cakers sort of become friends through this whole experience?
Yes.
It's like
Absolutely.
a bonding thing.
Absolutely.
never knew Danette until we met through the cakes, along with many other people that I think will.
Danette, I bet there's some stories there when you'd be out on location at a cake, just bumping into random people. I bet you had some interesting conversations.
Oh my gosh, that was one of the most enjoyable things about the adventure. In addition to making friends, it was meeting strangers and hearing their stories. One of my favorite memories was when I went to the Eads Bridge to look for the cake there. And so I was kind of looking around. I was at the wrong entrance, and this older gentleman approached me to find out if he could help. And so I asked him if he knew anything about the cakes, and like a lot of people, he didn't know anything about the cakes at all. But we got to chatting, and I found out that his story was that he had grown up in St. Louis as a young person and remembered the building of the arch and left while it was being built, had served in the military for a number of years, and now as an older person was coming back and was going to go see it for the very first time since it was finished.
Wow.
So that was pretty amazing to me.
Let's take a look at another cake. This one of my personal favorite locations anyway, Ted Drew's.
Great cake, great location.
Now, did you have any concretes when you were there?
Yes, we did. Did you? I'm sure you did.
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
And actually, that picture was taken at like 7 o'clock in the morning. That's why there's no people, no dogs, no kids.
Because there's usually a line there, isn't there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was on my way to work. I would often take an adventure and make 5 or 6 cake stops before work.
Let's take a look at the next one. Ah, the Dog Museum.
Great cake, great cake. And that's one that we've become close with. We've learned, met beside Rich, a lot of the artists have become close with the cakers, and we've learned about their artwork and become involved in activities. There was a meet and greet at the Dog Museum with Lindsay Harmon, who organized that event, and we met. There were like 4 or 5 artists there that day, and we had our cake project there, and we brought the traveling cake, which is a fun little cake that only appears at certain events. So lots of ways to meet the artists and learn about their artwork.
Now, some of these cakes are still at their location. I think Erin made the point earlier that maybe some of these businesses bought them, but didn't some individuals buy cakes too? And I was wondering if you did.
Yes.
Why are you laughing? What's the story?
A lot of the locations were given their cakes if they chose. Some of them were put up on the auction block, and on 9 Network we found a lot of those on at the end of the first night celebration. And then there's some private locations that have recently been putting their cakes out for sale. And as of last night, and it hasn't even been really put out yet, I'm the proud owner of a cake.
Just one?
Of my own, yes. There are a few cakes that are out there that our Cake Wave group has purchased, and we're getting ready for a cake walk.
And so what do you do with a 4-foot fiberglass cake? Is it in your dining room or what?
I have 4 of them in my living room.
As a matter of fact.
Do you have to move the couch or?
No, there's still a couch that's empty, and you can, it's strategic planning. So now when the 5th cake today comes home to visit the other 4 cakes, we'll see what happens. But it may go outside so people can see that.
What about you, Danette? Do you own one?
I don't own one.
She wants one. She wants one.
Yeah.
Before we go any
possible.
further, I want to point out what kind of cakers you really are, because you're both wearing cake jewelry, and we'll see if we can maybe zoom in on you a little bit. Chris, you first. Your earrings look like miniature cakes. Where'd they come from?
One of our cakers, Linda Gurney, actually made the earrings. She had them carved, hand carved, and then she personally painted them.
And Danette, you have a necklace on?
Right. This was actually something that I purchased, and Rich Brooks, who's one of the artists, painted it.
Rich, we were talking about it in the first segment. Beautiful. Let's look at a few more cakes from the STL250 year-long celebration. This is from the Butterfly House.
Beautiful cake.
Do you have any memories about that?
Of course, that's one of the great locations in West County, and lots of us, especially people who have families with young children love to go there and visit.
Okay, let me ask you both real quickly. I think we just have a few seconds left, but you've had this obsession, and I mean that in a nice way, for the last year. Now it's over. What are you going to do?
That's a really good question.
I think there's a book in the works. I don't know if you have anything to do with it, but there may be a book eventually.
There may
do you
be
know
a
anything
book,
about that?
and most of us are for sure going to make our own photo books, like through things like Shutterfly and other things like that. So, and we're going to continue our relationships with each other.
Do you think you've made friendships that
oh,
that
absolutely.
lasted?
Definitely.
Yeah, we'll be doing field trips and get-togethers. We've had picnics. We've had outings.
How many cakers are there like you that you know of? People that went around, did everyone? Do you have any idea?
I think probably tens of thousands. In the larger STL250 Cake Way to the West group, there were over 2,000 members, and that didn't include people who weren't.
Well, we're going to have some contact information come up, a Facebook page and thing. I hope people will maybe pursue it, and I hope you get a book together someday. It's been fascinating. Thanks for sharing your passion with us today.
Thank you.
Steve.
That's all the time we have for this City Corner. Thanks so much for watching, and happy birthday, St. Louis, right? See you next time. Bye.